Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, and Lakota Sioux.
Hi, sorry, I've got to try to turn off my mic because I'm actually in another conference session. I'm trying to double dip.
So I'm mindful on the world stage.
And I'm not used to, I haven't used Zoom on my iPad.
Oh, got it. Okay.
All right, let me figure this out.
No worries. You're good. Since it's after the time, I will go ahead and just say hello and welcome to session 47.
Indeed. Right now, this is the good news. I am in the midst of, I hit submit on this Creative Capital grant, but I don't know if it actually submitted. So I'm doing that thing of like, no, I can't tell. I sense that today we are leaning into the imperfection of I don't think we did a consistent invitational strategy this week. So I don't know if anyone's going to show up, and I'm not mad at it.
All of the emails said that it was in the morning. So we did have like conversations with people. So anyway, I just think that many people, but there was an additional email that went out about an hour ago that said it was in the afternoon. So whoever read that email and was available may come.
Indeed. So we should hold the time. We should be here for those who show up. We can have a lovely conversation. And also you and I can use this as productive workspace to actually do some house cleaning organizational stuff for the program. I'm just gonna, and this really works since Sabrina is dual presencing in 2 different spaces. So this allows you, Sabrina, to give most of your attention to the other space that you're in for the time being.
Well, I'm going to say one quick thing is I just noticed that I had sent you a birthday card, which was an e-card, and it came from JackieLawson.com on your birthday, and you have not opened it.
Oh my God.
It's not spam. Give me.
But you do the thing that you need to do with the grant and finish that, and we'll get to the bottom of all the rest of it.
And also, I think I'm actually going to sign off. I'm at the USITT conference, and wonderful. Some of the sessions are actually on transmedia producing stuff.
Yes, please be at USITT and be present and awesome there.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that, and if there's anything wonderful, I will try to bring it back.
Please. And actually, we might want to invite the conference organizers or producers to come to a session if you feel like.
If there's a session that's good, because this is like thousands of people at this thing usually, so it's like insane. But yeah, I'll be looking out for interesting stuff. Bye.
And then we just gained a Heather. Heather, I'm guessing you can hear me. I'm just going to explain that Claudia is finishing up the capital. I always forget what the words are, but it involves the word capital grant. And she's almost done. And then you missed the bit where it was like, it'll be the day of leaning into imperfections, and like we'll get to settle some things, and it'll be grand. So, but as predicted, this, we'll see what it is, and we're recording just for the fun of, like, transparency in transmedia, etc. So that's what's happening right now.
Can I just tell y'all though, the entire digital application process is its own very specific and stressful thing, because it has to be in really specific formats. Like when you
I've done it so many times. Like
it's just the worst. I could fill something out and put it in an envelope. Oh, Kim, hello.
Somebody
Kim.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's exciting. All right, we have a new friend. So I'm going to stop. I'll introduce myself last.
Okay.
So that I can reflect on this process. I think I'm almost done, but we'll see what happens.
Kim, I don't know if you've joined the audio, but welcome. I'm about to paste some things into chat here. Hello. We're starting just a few minutes late because it's going to be like a small, intimate situation today. Let me just drop the kind of.
That's perfect because my last meeting ran long.
we got lucky. So I'm just dropping this in the chat so everyone can see it. And then also this is the notes for the meeting today, so that if things are coming up that you're mentioning that have like links, you can drop them directly into the notes for the session. We kind of all take turns throwing things in there for the asynchronous audience. But today is Producing the Pandemic 487, and which was a long time coming. There have been a couple of weeks where we didn't have them. And we do a decolonized greeting just because it's good practice. I'm also gonna drop in the link for finding oh, Indiana's here. Wonderful. So fantastic. But I'll start the introductions, and you can sign up in the chat to introduce next, or we'll just kind of popcorn as we go. Hi, Deanna. It's lovely to see you. So my name is Rebecca Pingree. My gender pronouns are she, her, hers. I am affiliated with Analog Theater is my company. I'm the co-founder of Analog Theater. And I'm speaking to you from the unceded land of the Yuchi, the Shawanwaki Shawnee, and the Cherokee people, which is colonially known as Nashville, Tennessee. And we often, a visual description is I'm a middle-aged white woman with kind of pandemic-y auburn hair that's in a little side ponytail, and I'm sitting in front of a twin bed, a very bright window, and an accordion. And we usually share a challenge or a discovery, yeah, the main challenge for me has actually been the getting to the 1 year anniversary of the pandemic, and how it is interfering with the systems that I've carefully come up with to manage my life in the pandemic. That like it's a different level of emotional BS that I'm dealing with, which is not like, it's not directly producing the pandemic, but also it is. And that's been the main thing on my mind, although I did just attend the gala for the Forum Collective on GatherTown, and it was freaking amazing. It was delightful and rad and super inspiring, and was so lovely to just be able to be like I was at a party, following around the people who I love, and then running into people and being like, I don't know you, who are you? And just being like, that's like it would be in real life. How lovely. And I just love that they're constantly pushing forward with just like, we can do better, we can do something different. And so thumbs up to theater events on GatherTown. Loved it. And that's me. Since no one's signed up yet in the chat, pop in and introduce yourself.
This is Claudia. I will pop in and introduce myself. Rebecca, thank you for holding the space for the beginning. We'll talk about this more later in the meeting, but I just want to acknowledge that the thing that you were checking in on, it's actually the struggle for this group. So we decided, oh, we've been doing this for a year. We can't do this every single week. We have to give ourselves time off. And then also we want to be accessible to folks. So let's meet at different times. And then what does that do? That creates disruption in communications. So we had folks trying to get into this space at 10 a.m. this morning. So I look forward to later on reflecting on some, all of the different communication systems we have for decentralized collaboration and remote collaboration and national collaboration, because those are all the things that we're doing. So Sabrina was here for a hot second, and then Sabrina popped out because Sabrina is holding space at USITT. There's actually some really cool rooms taking place there, some conversations on transmedia. So we're so happy that we've got a friend there taking notes. Last weekend, we decided to give me the day off for my birthday. Thank you all. It was delightful. Thank you so much for that. And a big shout out for those of us who were able to make it to the Ghostlight Project that evening, where many of your faces were visible because the Calling Up Justice practice at the Ghostlight Project presentation shared a video of all the things that we do. And in our Calling Up Justice practice video, there was definitely a bunch of screenshots from producing in pandemics. So asynchronously, many of you were helping and participating in that beautiful social justice sort of heart pep rally event. And I was just let me actually do the introduction as we're supposed to do. I just started talking. Terrible. All right. Hi, I'm Claudia Alec. My gender pronouns are they, their, she, hers. You can use those interchangeably. I am speaking to you from the Bay Area, land of the Ohlone people. The people are still alive, and also from a world that has concentration camps still. I'm mad about that. Let's see. My practice is I am the executive producer of the Calling Up Justice practice, and I am a person who wears all of the hats. And last weekend, I got to wear all of my hats almost simultaneously. So on Friday, I had the great joy and happiness of holding space as a board member for an advisor for the digital producing project we've cooked up with the NASH project and with NASH, Northwest Art Streaming Hub, and the Vera project, where we got some funding, and we have about 7 or 8 BIPOC youth digital producers getting trained up and actually getting free equipment. So very exciting about that. And so I just got to that was me just looking pretty and being on camera and being like, yeah. So that was Friday night. And then on Saturday, I got to perform. So that was me being a writer and a performer with the New York Neo-Futurists. We used the platform's StreamYard primarily for that. And that's when I discovered, super fun, I had fully developed and designed my plays on Zoom using plugins that work with Zoom. And they were tricky little plays where they're performed live, but my background changes as I'm doing things because of my awesome plugins. Discovered StreamYard doesn't work with any of them. So I did our rehearsal and was like, oh, I have to restage my play. So that was a fun learning curve, and I was able to do it. So yay. And then on, of course, Monday we had and then on Sunday we had Trek Table with the BIPOC folks talk show on Star Trek. And then of course on Monday, the Ghostlight Project, where I was a producer and then got to do a little bit of presenting about some of the work we've been doing. So my challenges have been, there's not enough of me. And my challenges are finding really efficient and successful ways of communicating with the gigantic groups of human beings we're collaborating with. And that's my report out from this week. Check. Whoever wants to go next, you go right ahead.
I'll go. My name is Kim Yeged. I'm in the land of the Salish and Katani people. I'm a writer of all varieties. I don't know that I have any specific affiliation, but I've made work with a variety of folk, which kind of leads into my challenge discovery, which is also why I'm showing up today for the first time, which is I've been very reluctant to make work online. And I think it's partially because of the piece I just finished writing, and partially maybe just I'm fatigued from not making work. I'm sort of, I kind of, and also urging, I got a group of friends together. I wrote a poetic play called Love and Hate in the Time of COVID. And I got a few friends together to just read it for me. And they've been urging me, like, they've also been blaming, like, it's your responsibility to get it out there. So, so all of that is sort of what has brought me here to learn from everybody, if you're willing to share, and just inform myself and see if, I don't know if brave is the right word, but to see if there's some kind of synergy to kind of make this happen. Anyway, thank you.
I will go next. I'm going to talk about my access needs really fast because I usually feel like, oh, I'm all covered. Well, I'm puppy sitting and there was just some raucous dog fight happening. And you can see I'm outside. Oh yes, now a neighbor dog just appeared in our yard. So it's going to be like me in the moment the whole meeting today. My name is Heather Andersma. I use she, her pronouns. I'm so happy to be here. I love this space. And it's been a little irregular lately after like however many, like 40 meetings without ever taking a break. So I'm kind of like, oh, thank goodness we're here again today. I just got out of, visual description, white, middle-aged woman, graying hair. You can see the dyeing attempts that happened a year ago and before. I'm letting the dog go. Hopefully that's not a bad idea. And I'm in the backyard on the land of the Ohlone people, Chochenyo speaking Ohlone people. I'm so thrilled that the Ohlone people brought their language back after a period of 60 years of no one speaking the language, which I just find so thrilling and inspiring that that people were able to do that. Colonially known as Berkeley, California, excuse me. I'm a freelance director. I'm about a little over a year into my journey to train as an intimacy director and coordinator. I think I might have booked my first gig doing that, and I'm so excited. It's a lesbian rom-com. Fingers crossed. And I just came back from, I was at Ghostlight, amazing, loved it. Just attended SETC, Southeastern Theater Conference, for the first time because it's virtual. Loved it. Loved the people. So inspiring. I could talk for an hour. We don't have an hour just for the Heather show, so I'll pass it to whoever's ready to go next.
I can go. This is Deanna. Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna. My pronouns are they, them. I have short black hair and light brown skin, and I'm wearing a Mickey long sleeve Christmas shirt in front of a window with sunlight. I came today because I was excited about the conversation about teaching in a pandemic, and I'm also supportive if that's not what those who come to this space today truly desire to talk about. That's okay too. I'm an uninvited occupant of the land of the Gabrielino / Tongva and KIZH peoples in what's colonially known as Orange County in Southern California. Look. Oh, I'm also with Calling Up Justice. I think all my access needs are met as best as they can be at this time. One discovery or challenge. It's hard to choose just one. This week was actually like an interesting week of a lot of breakthroughs for me, I think, of like going to a bunch of different educational workshops and being like, oh, thank goodness that I didn't finish the writings that I had on my deadline, or even 2 months after the deadline, and that I'm still working on it, because my writing is going to be way different now than it would have been had I not had access to that content. Kim, I'm super like supportive of what you've shared, and I think that I'm struggling in certain and the ways that you've shared too. And so Claudia and I have different work sessions throughout the week where I work on this stuff that I'm just like, oh, I need to write and I don't want to write, but I want to get this out there. So I'm super supportive if you want to have a conversation outside of this call to do something like that too, and we can just share space and like support each other doing the writing work. And that's it for me. Check.
Tanya, thank you so much for joining us. I believe we've all checked in, and I just want to make some space in case we have missed you.
Tanya, you're lit up, but you're muted. So I wonder if that means you're talking. There you
I-
are.
You couldn't hear me laughing, could you? No.
Not at all. Not at all. I
turned
thought
on-
that might be what's happening now.
I turned on the, what is this called? Camera, and then it blew up. So you may lose me, and also my access need is I need to duck out soon, but I appreciate you all so much. I wanted to pop in, say hello. Happy belated, Claudia. My name's Tanya Newmeyer. I use they, them pronouns. I'm zooming in from the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, the Petun, the Mississauga of the Credit, and Anishinaabe people in colonially Toronto, Canada. We had our big grand annual poetry slam with the Toronto Poetry Slam, where I'm a volunteer, sort of a board member collective. Heather, you came. Thank you. That's great. After hearing about it all year and after having a full season online. So that was great. We did it. Right. I'm a poet and I know it and I like to show it. So Kim, I also am asking myself lots of questions about writing in a pandemic. I guess there could be like another peer hangout chat just about that. And I, in my capacity of enthusiasm for poetry and particularly the Poetry Slam community, I do some teaching. So I've been using mostly Zoom as a tool to go to the schools that I have relationships with virtually this year, which is weird when you go into the class and then you can't see or hear the students if they're all in a physical classroom, which is happening in places in Ontario where I am. And then so the teacher will sort of angle the camera to catch as many students as possible. And then the teacher, I'm finding, has to amplify the voices of the students who are in the back. My face may be projected onto a projector, so I may be appearing to the students like hugely. And then there's also a hybrid in a lot of classrooms of both digital like access points and then folks being in physical schools. So yeah, I think I've been learning about that, which tool flips the words, like, and which tool doesn't. So Zoom should show this as backwards in my camera, but frontwards in yours. And that's been useful when I do Instagram lives where I'm sort of doing poetry workshops. And if I'm trying to show work, I have to use the front facing camera. So, I mean, I'm sort of talking about the intersection of the tools in teaching. And again, I feel like there's an opportunity for a long conversation about that. But I'm happy to chat more. I actually have to be on with some youth in a facilitation capacity soon. So I'm going to duck out, but I wanted to like offer some of that. I'm going to invite folks to be in touch. And I think most of you know how to reach me, all of you except perhaps Kim. So maybe I'll send you my email, Kim, and I wish you all a great week. Just gonna check in and yeah, not sing happy birthday despite my enthusiasm.
Please don't. But thank you. And the Discord. This is what the Discord is for. The Discord is for us continuing conversations, maybe finding times for one-on-ones, or the cool thing about the Discord too is also you can meet inside the Discord. So I've had somebody go into a Discord and be like, "Yo, Claudia, I love this clause you just wrote. but I don't totally understand it. Can you pop into the video and talk to me? And then I was like, oh yeah. And then we were in a room together talking. It was kind of cool. So I feel like that teaching is such a large topic that we're going to revisit it. As I acknowledged at the top of our session today, and as Heather and Rebecca also acknowledged, we've been doing a thing where we made our sessions split times for greater accessibility. Total success. I've gotten so much great affirmation from our participants that we're just so happy to have. For the participants who couldn't make it in the mornings, they love their afternoon options. Same on the other side. Also, I personally loved being able to take a day off on February 22nd, right? That was awesome. Then getting the surprise day off on February 29th was brilliant. It was like getting a gigantic birthday present. It was a birthday present, so that's exactly what it was. That said, I recognize that since we're not meeting in a physical space, the consistency of the time has really been a thing for us. So I just recognize that we gave ourselves a bunch of awesome freedom in February, but it also kind of disrupted our rhythms. And so I'm very happy to be in space with all of you. So I look forward to Sabrina bringing back learnings from USITT. Deanna named that they were interested in talking about teaching, as I am as well. But before we go there, I just have a couple of go back quick questions. So go back quick question number one, I dropped a link for GatherTown with the Forum Collective. They did some really beautiful, so we did a GatherTown, like we went to GatherTown and messed around with it. My question for y'all is, was that useful when you went to the forum event? Was like you having familiarity? Was that you did it help you to get in it or feel more? I would just love to hear a GatherTown report out.
Well, so the only thing is, so the GatherTown session that we did was the one that I missed because I was driving across the country.
Oh,
that's the one that that's the one that I wasn't in. And so I had made like an account and I had glanced at it separately, and then it was like, well, I'm driving, I can't participate in this. So so I had never experimented with it until then. And so most of my learnings were in real time with it, though it did function very similarly to other things that we had done. But yeah, so I can't compare it in that way because that was the one that I was like, oh, I'm not actually doing this instead.
I dropped a link into because I really like this as a piece of their practice. They made a tutorial, like a little video tutorial for folks before you would go to it. So you could get more familiar with the space. Kim, this space was kind of like Zelda, I guess, the video game, like very pixelated, and you're just like a little pixelated person going places, and then you can talk to people. It's like Zelda meets Zoom, I guess. Is that how the We See Eye to Eye folks describe themselves? Am I stealing their description? I might be, because the We See Eye to Eye.
That is how.
Yeah, and the We See Eye to Eye was different than GatherTown because the We See Eye to Eye was like, this is a world you can explore, and the GatherTown is more like, let's make your own territory to have a party at.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that, like. I actually appreciated that GatherTown feels much less slick. Like that was actually a thing that I loved, was that it was just like, there's certain things that we're not trying to compete with your experience. Like if you're like, oh, it has to feel like, I'm trying to get to like it feels like World of Warcraft or something. And it's like, no. It's just like, and I did watch Kieran's, Kieran made the tutorial, and I did watch that beforehand because they sent out an email to all of the people who had already donated and said like, here's a tutorial and here's that, and it's just it's very silly, but very Kieran in a way that makes me smile, but it was really helpful. Like it did mean that like the main questions that I had, I was like, oh, I would never have thought to look for like the ability to find certain people in this way and like various elements. So I was like, oh, good tutorial. And that and then there were discoveries where I had an avatar. I had chosen an avatar because there weren't they're just set avatars right now. And so it's like I had just chosen one that I was like, I think this is the closest to me, but like it's really a toss up. But it was one that nobody else chose. And they had a dance floor where if you crossed onto a red rug, music would play and then you could make your avatar dance. And it's like it's one button that makes your avatar dance. And the different avatars have different dances, but not all of them. Just some of them do. And it turned out that even though everybody had lots of different avatars, because nobody who was dancing had mine, everybody was like, oh my God, how are you dancing like that? That's so cool. How are you dancing like that? And I was like, it's just the dance that my avatar does, apparently, because I'm pressing the same button that you guys. Everybody thought I was like super fancy. And I was like, guys, it's just that I happened to be the only person who chose the avatar that they decided danced this way.
Tanya puts into the chat, was it the X button? Yes.
I thought
I'm
it was the Z button, but maybe it is.
Y'all stop. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of a GatherTown Forum Collectives event in GatherTown report out. You know, what we're always trying to do is we're trying to check out a platform, but oftentimes you'll really understand what a platform can do when you're seeing it fully produced and with the audience and getting to really explore it. So that's awesome. All right. I feel like, oh, wait, I'm going to report out one last thing. This is me just doing a short reflection on the application process I just went through. And then I'm going to invite us to just have a free form conversation about teaching online. We can talk about platforms, we can talk about techniques. I wonder if we just want to like talk about challenges and solve each other's problems, just to use our time in the most selfish, fun way possible. But before I do that, let me do my little reflection on the online application process. And this is not just for grants. So I feel like we as an organizing group would be well served to potentially invite some people who design forms, who design intake. The experience I just went through was one where I had to make everything shaped perfect because the program refused to accept it if one thing was off or wrong. What I think that the application process I just did, the two things they did that I really like were they extended their application deadline, and then they didn't make their application deadline by the minute because my form was done. I just couldn't get it to submit. And I was like, let me go in, maybe if I change this, if I shorten this by one word, but like word counts, all of that, it's just a lot of hoops to jump through. And in the online application process, it feels more bespoke, like the word counts, the shape of the different pieces of the application. It just feels like I'm having to do more labor as an individual user to create something for the larger process that I'm getting involved in. And it feels like that's more because of the digital intake process rather than what it usually is. So that's just a free flow thing, mostly because for the first 5 minutes of our process today, I was doing this. Send. All right, friends, teaching. What do we want to talk about?
This is Deanna. It's interesting because online education has been something that a lot of people have needed or wanted or benefit from in some way and have been denied, whether for workplace accommodation and other stuff, for a very long time. And at the same time, shifting to online produces such interesting conflicting access. What could be required and beneficial for one person can pose a whole set of issues that would not have been the case for another person had it been continued online. And that's the same for like kids, like all throughout the lifespan of age, and then how it affects like marginalized people, multiply marginalized people and their families too, of like a bunch of parents needing to become teachers, specific parents also needing to, you know, figure out how to balance having assistance and not getting COVID, and also still
Mhm.
making money, and like all of these different things. So yeah, that's just like a starting point. Check.
Well, I feel like we had the big silence because there's so many different entry points into this conversation. So like, and as I was sort of mapping out, I realized we're gonna have to revisit this topic multiple occasions. And my instincts are to be organic and to allow the room to decide, well, what's the thing we're going to talk about today? Some of the concerns around teaching are about health and safety. They really are. Human rights, health and safety. Some of us are having conversations, like Tanya was bringing to the table, the complications of mixed presencing in teaching. When the teacher is not present, but the students are present with each other in the space. When everyone's in their own individual space, there's something deeply equalizing about what we're doing. We're all in separate spaces. When I was teaching this year and I had students who would sometimes be in a dorm, but some of them would be sharing computers, I could tell that the engagement was not, it just wasn't as full because they weren't only engaging here, they were also engaging here.
My perspective on this topic is not so much as a person teaching theater throughout the pandemic, as many of our colleagues, like that's what they've been doing. That's been their challenge. For me, I've been taking advantage of all the intimacy training that's online. So I've just like ramped up my training, because in the past you had to travel, you had to pay for the hotel or stay with your friend, you had to have a transportation, I mean, it was just like, it was like booking a conference stay outside of where you lived, or you just waited for the training to be where you lived. And the past couple of years since this training started, I did not live in an area where any training was being offered. So I feel like I've had so much increased access during this time. But it's interesting because the people, I managed to do 2 in-person trainings before, or 3, I guess, before the pandemic hit. And the people that I met in those trainings, I have this like little special part in my heart for them. When I see them in a room, I'm always like, ooh, it's like a reunion. That's not to say I haven't created connection with people that I've never met, right? I mean, obviously so like I've also cultivated strong connections with people that I've only known online in the last year, which brings me to, for personally, my whole thing is community and engagement. And I'm so obsessed with that. Like, I love the chat, love the chat, love the chat, love the chat, because I feel like I connect with people in a different way. And it also and I think I love this meeting because it is so equitable. And I'm not so crazy about very formal webinar type situations. Like, they really actually totally annoy me, because I feel like they're so hierarchical, they're so patronizing. Even if the person who's offering it does have a ton that I can learn from, I still feel sort of pandered to. And that's what I've really discovered during this, like how I feel like I'm absorbing the knowledge in like, with like the fewest barriers, even if those are just kind of like, what is it about me that I feel pandered to when it's a webinar and we're not allowed to chat with our fellow attendees? I mean, I haven't totally dug into it, but that's one of my entry points. That's one of my things when we talked about this topic. And the other one is I have 3 kids who are attending 3 different schools. 2 are in high schools, but different high schools, and one's in elementary school. And so it's like every single day how much my younger one hates her teacher. because her teacher like won't, she asked her like 7 times this morning to turn her camera on. My kid was in the class. She didn't want to turn her camera on. And that teacher just, I don't know why. I don't know why they're, you know, it may be personal, or it may be like the principal is telling them, get all those kids to get their cameras on because we're losing kids. Because I know, yeah, some kids are not going to have their camera on because they are not doing the class. But yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about what my kids have been experiencing. And because I'm in the room, I hear it all too. Check.
I'm so happy that you're bringing that perspective into this conversation, because whenever we do these, I'm never confident about like who exactly is going to arrive when we're having a conversation, and the perspective of the parent as well as the remote teacher, I think, is vital. So this is just a quick thought on forced engagement and engagement. And actually, and I feel like, Kim, this all connects to theater making. It all connects to theater making, because we've had conversations about what is it like to do relationship building with an audience member who's sitting next to you, and how we've missed being able to make friends with audience members, with like, and how do you connect as audience members when you're seeing something? And how the webinar, it gets rid of the audience to audience engagement. So the only thing you can engage with is the thing. And the one thing I do like about the webinar format is that it allows me to be the laziest participant as possible. We run this room to be a relaxed space. So you can be camera on, camera off. We've created a framework that allows for the maximum amount of flexibility and freedom for gaining knowledge and sharpening your skills. In a webinar, it allows me to be less present and less active. I can turn it on. You can't see me. I'm in the kitchen making some food. Maybe I fully left the room. I forgot it was on. I'm not even listening to it anymore. And Heather is sharing that they love the breakout rooms, and the few times we've been able to play theater games online, they've been wonderful and community building. Yes. But on forced engagement, that's what I was going to reflect on. I just took a whole step back, but I've been taking notes as everyone's been chatting and been like, oh, interesting stuff. So forced engagement. So this is what I'm thinking is happening. One is, it can make you feel so paranoid and just like really like insecure when you don't know what everybody else is doing, when you're performing for an invisible audience. That's really like, that can fill you with all kinds of insecure feels. Also, these teachers are getting a huge amount of surveillance and judgment because their classes are recorded and stuff. So now people can be like, wow, you're a terrible teacher. None of your students are participating, burp, 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 burp. Or like, if you're a teacher who's attempting to be really flexible and open and allow your students to be participating at whatever level they're participating at, the institution might give some judgments and negativity to the teacher for that. So that's a piece of that forced engagement performance. But Heather's also right. To a certain extent, if you allow folks to be off camera, they might not be engaging in the class. They might fully not be doing it. I saw Deanna go on and off camera, so I don't know if there were pieces of this conversation that you're like, oh, Claudia, I want to pop in on this. I just wanted to make sure I was making space.
Thanks. This is what happens when you're in a meeting on your phone and then you're also like multitasking on your phone, and you're like, it's so funny because it's literally what you're talking about right now. Like, I'm listening to you and I'm also like, you know.
That's the framework of this meeting though. So like the invitation for you to participate at the level you're participating at, it's totally fine. And we keep saying meeting, you know, because I don't call this a classroom space, even though this is definitely a learning and information exchange space. So we've just been calling it a peer exchange group because we're like non-hierarchical. There are no teachers. We teach each other. That said, Kim, whatever questions you have, you should ask them. I believe many of us will have many, many answers for you. Rebecca, are you actively teaching right now?
So the short answer is no. That there's a but there has been so much pretty much all of the private teaching that I was doing stopped with the pandemic, and I really resisted trying to move a private teaching practice online because so much of the way that I've taught, that it really was the pandemic that caused me to stop taking it for granted, and also the intimacy training that I was also doing that started before the pandemic, but all of that was really changing the way I teach, because for years I had been teaching voice and certain types of movement work for cosplay people, but like that all of that stuff was based on like, oh, okay, well, okay, when I'm singing, like, feel this, like, how does this feel? Like, okay, so can you feel how this is vibrating here? Can you, like, whatever? And it's like but it was like modeling it and then being like, okay, can you, like, and then so conversations about consent changed, which was really great, but I was just like, I don't know how to model it for people, especially given that like the quality of microphones is just so awful, like the built-in microphones and like various things. So the way my voice causes somebody else's bones to resonate is not going to happen if I'm singing, even with a fancy microphone, and it's coming out of their tinny speakers. Like it doesn't.
Wow.
So I'm just like, I don't know that I can do that. And then like, it's taken a full year for me to go like, actually, there's plenty of things you can do. I just imagined that was the only thing I had to offer that was like different or of value. And so there's been recently a lot more interest in me teaching, and I've started to go like, I mean, I do have a keyboard here. I mean, I guess I could, and then I could send recordings, and then this could, I mean, I think I like, but it's just taken so long to even like convince myself to consider it. And I don't have solutions for a lot of it. And then also there's the thing where I had kind of worked myself up to over time, how do I monetize this? And what do I feel comfortable charging in various situations and whatever? And the internet just made me go like, oh, I'm not worth it. Like they shouldn't, in this context, they shouldn't spend money on me in this way. I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to monetize it. And so like, it's taken a long time to be like, okay, maybe I can figure out how to do that. But I'm also, for that reason, like I'm also very interested. I'm very interested in it. And part of it was also me starting to do one-on-one lessons on the internet. Like that was actually the difference, was instead of doing large classes. There are people who teach large like music classes and things, and I'm like, I would be fascinated to know how they do it, but I can't even imagine trying to do that online.
Well, I also think that we've got a really lovely mix of, Tanya just stepped out, but we have a mix of folks who are doing one-on-one teaching, group practice teaching, sort of like informal youth, like after school kind of formats, as well as university course, more formal kinds of teaching. Now, this topic was kind of popped off because Patricia was mentioning just some of the struggles that they've been going through as a college professor, right? I look forward to bringing having conversations about that, but in this moment, I feel like I want to lift up Heather, naming that the nice thing about this is that there's actually more educational opportunities accessible, and that's amazing. So there's an accessibility, which is exciting. But then Rebecca mentioned something around monetization and the platform. You said that you felt like your work lacked some sort of aesthetics or packaging that would allow it to be worth the amount of money you wanted to charge for it. That was me translating you being like, I don't know, but did I get that accurate? Was that right?
It's less about, I mean, some of it is the packaging. Actually, I wouldn't have phrased it that way. And when you said it, I went, no. And then I was like, well, no, it is that too. It's definitely also that, but that it's the part of it that feels like, why would you hire me as opposed to somebody else, is that there's like kind of like Patricia uses the word haptic all the time, where I'm just like, there's this thing that I'm like, no, breathing and feel this, and like, okay, but can you, like, where it's like about like vibrations and like, and other things that people go like, oh, I can't feel that. And I'm like, okay, we'll try this. And they're like, oh my God, my forehead's vibrating. I'm like, I know, isn't it great? Like, like, or whatever. Like, that's the part where I go, certainly other voice teachers do that. I'm definitely not the only one, but that's the aspect that's not like, I've worked a lot with teenagers. Like, that's the aspect that like they don't have time to get in music classes in school. Like, and so whereas I go, oh, but online, I'm like, you should hire somebody who's a great keyboardist, who has, do you know, like, you should hire like a musical director type who's going to like teach you lots of music and like do, to basically help you do the kinds of things that virtual platforms are great at.
Ooh, okay, all right.
But I go like, the thing that I do, that's the thing that's kind of like what I consider to be the thing that I do best, when I'm in a space with people and can kind of sense what's going on with them. And I'm like, I think there's something, is there something you want to tell me about this? Is that, oh, okay, cool. Well, we'll just let that go and we'll do, you know, like, or whatever. There's something that's very like, that's very present about that I was just like, well, that's the only bit that I go, oh, that's what I do.
Okay,
and I know how to translate that.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm finding this deeply useful, because I feel like there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of artists who have done this to themselves. What I'm hearing is that you recognize that you're very good at teaching a skill set that is about live performance and teaching it to another human being in shared physically embodied space. And that is a distinct skill set. Not everybody can do it. And your ability to understand what that is and translate it to another person, that's huge. I myself really strongly believe that you could teach me those skill sets through a computer. It's just that it would take you, I think, several years for you to personally feel super confident in your ability to teach it, right? Because you'd be learning how to teach it. I just did a bunch of TJ work, and it was deeply frustrating. It was deeply challenging because there were shortcuts and tricks that I have designed, and I've been doing them for decades. I've been doing them for so long, I forgot that they were pieces of the practice, right? Me, I roll into the space with some other fellow transformative justice practitioners. We go in, we think we know what we're doing, but suddenly the space is different. The way we engage with people is totally different. And a lot of those ways of quickly building trust, quickly managing conflict, were impossible in the ways we had previously done them, and required us to go into the circle, go, oh, that didn't work, and go, oh, how did we do it in physical space? What's a different way to get that same outcome, but in a digital space? But the other thing you talked about, Rebecca, that made my brain go, oh, wow, is the act of me experiencing your voice in a physically shared space is completely different than me experiencing you through the computer. So those are different skill sets people want to learn. You want to teach people to perform in regular space and also how to perform through the screen. I recall working at a theater and discovering that we had a lot of young actors who couldn't project. They'd all been trained to do things for screens, and they couldn't perform for a stage and real people, at least not unless it was a black box. They could do a black box because it was intimate, but they'd lost that other piece of technology, human technology. It's wild. I'm also just thinking about the ways that the platform will value or devalue your work as a teacher. Is anyone on Skillshare? See, Rebecca, you could 100% so easily have a Skillshare class. You could have a Skillshare class on voice, And I recall I was doing some performances at some conferences, and this was like a decade ago. Folks were like, oh, you got to get on the Skillshare. You got to do it. And I was like, I don't want to make an online course because I felt like it devalued my practice. And it also was going to make me have to make my work fit a digital box, kind of like that application form I did earlier today. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm now mad at myself because if I'd been doing it a decade ago, I would have that audience, that digital audience. I'd have familiarity with that particular platform, and I'd have all that money.
Rebecca, I don't know your work or you, so take this please for what it's worth. One of the people I've been working with a poet playwright who talks about beating the computer in the spoken word, and one of the people I met in that space is a singer. I mean, she's a spoken word artist as well, but she sings, and I've had this experience multiple times now because she's got crazy chops. And particularly like my piece is a poetic piece that I invite people to sing if they feel moved to. And the way my piece is written is that it's the text is there, but I talk about it being freestyle because people are cutting in and out and who reads what. So it's not like a regular play where someone's assigned a role. We're all brought into a space and everybody freestyles who says what line. And without fail, when she sings, everybody, it's a drop the mic moment. So I think, I don't know your voice, I don't know your skill set, but I do know that when this particular person, like you can see people's eyes bulge out of their head. So even though we're on Zoom, when she does what she does, it comes through. So I just, for whatever that's worth, that it doesn't take away all your power, it just slightly changes it.
I can see you receiving the compliments. I can see you receiving the compliments. I have a question for us. Now, as always, we tend to run our room. Again, it's a relaxed space, and it could be an hour long or an hour and a half long. My instincts are to give us some last closing thoughts on this conversation, and then transition us into planning for our next session, if that feels all right to folks. If people are like, no, I really need to talk more about this, I am down to hold down the space and we can talk more about it. But I'm just wondering, are there any closing out thoughts, observations on the topic of teaching in pandemic, learning in pandemic, education in pandemic?
This is Deanna. I wanted to say that it is my hope that more people and spaces will continue some of the accessibility after the pandemic that has been created through the pandemic. Yeah. And also that more people will be lenient during these times, and recognizing that we are in a pandemic, and so deadlines and all of these things that still feed into an accessibility that continues in some spaces, even though we're online, will be shifted, especially recognizing that we are in a pandemic and that there's more influences and forces that people are dealing with. So that's it for me. Check.
Yeah, I didn't even really know about Skillshare, or I didn't really understand what it was, and I just looked it up and went, oh, there's a lot here. So I'm dropping the link into the notes for today's session, so that other people can pick that up if they want to. but it is something that always happens where I'm just like, you think you're keeping up with things and you're like, how did I miss this? This is huge.
And here's the thing, it's an entire industry. Like there are a lot of, Skillshare isn't the only online space, but it's the one that gets mentioned in YouTube videos the most. YouTube videos love to say, also, you can take this class at Skillshare. Well, this was a wonderful exchange. I just want to give everyone gigantic big thanks for doing a small shallow dive, even though all of these notes from our conversation on teaching, and my instincts are potentially to, as always, we generally do like a sort of a group conversation on something, and then we'll think about bringing in an expert to maybe talk about something. Maybe we'll bring in somebody who does a Skillshare course to share what they like about that. Maybe we'll bring in somebody who's created an asynchronous online course and they can share what they like about that, because I think there are pluses and negatives to all of these different ways of sharing our work, learning how to do this. And I'm just happy to have a productive, comfortable space to do that with y'all. So I'm going to officially close down the meeting and invite people to stick around if they want to plan next week's meeting.